Here we are, Sunset and Camden.
Huh?
Oh, I forget that you weren't like a classic movie or musical girly. It's from Singing in the Rain.
Oh, sorry about that. I do apologize.
Oh, don't apologize.
I did
It
have
was
a
a
little bit
moment.
of a wake-up call. I decided randomly one morning last week when I was slightly under the weather to just put on Breakfast at Tiffany's because it's just not something that I've ever really I know that it's a classic. I know it's an Audrey Hepburn. I know
Yeah.
the things, right? But I've just never put it on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, hi, we're back. Welcome back to.
Well, what were your thoughts?
I will tell you.
Oh,
Welcome back to Empaths Anonymous Podcast. I'm Danie.
I'm Christina.
And my thoughts on Breakfast at Tiffany's were it was strange. I know we talked about how it was racist.
Yeah.
The portrayal of the neighbor. And just kind of a weird choice overall.
Right.
Was not necessary. We didn't need that.
The neighbor didn't even need to be Asian. Like, why did the neighbor need to be Asian? It could have just been
a neighbor.
Because it was Mickey Rooney. And
Something,
he's not,
yeah.
He's literally Caucasian.
I know. Yeah, they had to add prosthetics and shit and do makeup.
It was just unnecessary.
It was. It kind of reminds me of what they did for 16 Candles. He was an Asian actor, but they just kind of played into the stereotype.
What was his name? Ryan? The main guy? The guy that she goes on a date with?
No, it was the exchange student that her parents brought into the home.
Yeah.
And the play into the stereotypical, every time they showed him on screen, a gong got smashed.
Yeah.
And it was just weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, my takeaway was that it was a little bit strange and I didn't finish it. And their portrayal of people acting drunk is so different how they do it now.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Drinking then was much more frowned upon than it is now. And smoking cigarettes was just more highly accepted. Mm-hmm. So they almost did a flip-flop, which honestly,
yeah,
cigarettes are gross. So I'm cool with that. But yeah,
it got me the smoking inside. It got me.
It was, because it was after the prohibition times and all of that stuff. So it's it still was very much looked at as alcohol is really bad. Mm-hmm. But you can smoke a whole pack of cigarettes because it makes you skinny in your apartment.
Yeah, so I didn't finish it. Maybe one day I will, but I probably won't.
Yeah.
What's in your cup, sister?
Today we have the press matcha, what is it? Cardamom spice matcha.
Cardamom spice matcha latte. It sounds like what? Are you sure? Yes.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
The spice is minimal. Mm-hmm. You mostly taste the matcha with a little bit of added sweet fall flavor.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
And the agave.
But yeah, showing up, moving and grooving, going with the flow of life.
Mm-hmm. Same. My guess by the time this episode releases, I will be nearly done with school. Maybe 4-ish weeks left. I will be close to being done with my fall semester courses. And that is a good piece of news for me because behavioral statistics can kiss it. Aside from what's going on in our personal lives and careers, we wanted to take a couple of minutes and moments to extend a thank you and extend gratitude for our listeners and for our guests, especially who have just given us the opportunity to grow and learn and really just be able to let ourselves explore
and rise.
Yes.
Rise to the occasion. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. A couple weeks ago, we had Brandy Kakoa on the podcast, and that was such a fun time, and she's such a gem, as we spoke about. But specifically, if you are following us on Instagram, which it should be at Empaths Anon Pod, we posted a reel that we were surprised it did very well, and we love that because we were just sharing an authentic experience, and it was everything we said was absolutely true.
Yeah,
it was a time, and it was really important for me to take my daughter, who we, of course, always are speaking about. But if you notice in the reel, she is very much up in Christina's business, and she was all up in the business in the salon. So while I didn't get a treatment for her that day and I had wanted to, I ended up being completely okay with how the experience went. And it was just such a lovely time. And those people are
I think it was important for her to be there and see people who had hair like her.
Yeah. And she kept saying, she was like pointing to the pictures and she was like, ooh, she has curly hair like me. And I'm like, yes, girl. Exactly.
Yes. That's why we're here. Yeah. Just the past 3 to 5 weeks, I think that you guys are showing up in a different way, and there's more of you now, which is really exciting. And I think that we are getting a better gauge for what you like. And of course, we have thick ass skin, so if you come on our socials or leave a comment on our YouTube and just say, hey, didn't really like that, or I wish you would have explored this perspective, or I felt like this was biased, or not really liking these topics, I would like to see more of these, we're totally open to that.
Yeah.
But I think that we've seen a lot more response to the last few topics. Like Hispanic Heritage Month popped off, in my opinion. And we had 2 great guests, and we had 2 topics that I really believed in. I think that the episode with the Cheech Museum and the Latine artists did really well. I think that the advice that you get, or that is out there when you're starting a podcast, or even just becoming a content creator, is niche down, niche down, niche down. Talk about one thing. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about one thing, because that's not who I am.
That's not how I exist in my everyday life.
Right. I like music. Like we talked about Liam and One Direction, because that was something that was important for us to get off our chest, and important for us to acknowledge a part of ourselves and a part of our past selves. And we're in the mindset, if we are feeling this way, the feelers have to be feeling this way. And not saying that you're going to be into every single thing that we're into, but we're just trying to be 100% ourselves and attract the right people. So the things that we're putting out are things that we genuinely care about, want to talk about, love, things we want to open up conversation on, and we really hope that you connect with it, and we see when you do. So we're really grateful for that.
And so it is.
So it is.
That was kind of in lieu of what's in your cup type of moment, because I guess that's in both of our cups. And again, this is not the only time we talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's all the time. She'll be down here, I'll be upstairs, we're texting.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do you feel about doing this? How do you feel about doing that? It's a constant with lots of moving pieces, but I like how the pieces fit.
Which is crazy, because it's like we still always have shit to talk about. We both have a Sagittarius Mercury, you guys.
It's a lot.
I will never run out of shit to yap about.
No, I literally have to physically remove myself from certain situations, not necessarily between her and I, because we both understand that that's who we are. But like in situations where I can tell, okay, this person is not necessarily that inclined to hear me gab, especially at work. I'm like, okay, I'm going to physically remove myself from this room, because I could go on and on and on and on. And that's why I appreciate when someone can do that with me. Yeah. And I can just sit there and I'm like,
yeah. I'm like that at work too. And sometimes I get not offended, but I feel kind of like, oh, when somebody isn't giving me that back. So I'm like, am I bothering you? Or like whatever. Because I will just walk up to anybody and start talking to them.
Yeah.
And I found one girly there that we've both expressed to each other, like, we got you. We got each other's backs. Like whatever we say to each other stays between each other. I trust you. Like, we get each other. She's also brown. You know what I mean? You just got to find your people. But
it's the commodities.
Having to hold back and know like what you can share and what you can't. It's always an evolving quest for me.
I do for you.
Because it's hard for me to have an in-between, because people have told me before that I come off as very reserved, or even like bitchy or uninterested, because it's like if I don't know what to talk to you about, I'd rather not talk.
Right.
Because I don't like the guessing game. It also gives me anxiety to be like, do they like this? Or like trying to figure out someone's brain when they're not giving you anything.
Right.
It's hard. So I'm like, I'd rather not talk to you.
Yeah, I'm okay with being quiet if that's what the vibe is.
Yeah.
I can be very quiet. I can be very reserved. I used to get a lot. I think I've shared this before, that I look intimidating. But yeah, again, if you're not like giving me the energy that I need to kind of help like figure you out, and you're not being very open with me, then I'm gonna struggle a little bit, because I'm like giving you the mile and you're giving me half an inch. Like I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. I don't know. The thing that has just kept coming up for me is that life is really just not that serious. And we only have so much time in this life, in this body, and like who the fuck cares? Nothing is really that serious.
Yeah. It's like we're meant to be here to have a good time and make the best of the situations that we are put in. And really, I think being able to start up the pod and create this level of connection that so far has been this gradual but steady growth, and we're seeing it, we're loving it, has made me feel like I'm stepping more into my personal purpose and the purpose for the podcast, which is just connection.
Yep.
And what we read about in Kat Lantigua's book, which is absolutely gorgeous, and we will link it.
And we're having her on, so
we'll
do a full deep dive, have a whole conversation with her.
Yes,
soon.
If you build it, they will come. And just talks about the loneliness epidemic, how we talked about with Denise as well. And you don't realize that that's what it is that we're going through. We are lacking being connected to our humanity.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy feeling.
Yeah. I see it all the time because I work in a very social environment that people just do not know how to connect or how to conversate or just behave and react anymore. Could that be a product of coming out of a global pandemic where a lot of these people who were high school age or college age in the pandemic are now like out as adults in the world and they're like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah. It did take a lot of that in person. Those skills are learned.
Yeah.
You know, and I
had to be pushed into that bitch. I went into retail on purpose because I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was shy. Where I am now in my mental health journey, I can look back and be like, oh, I always had a lot of anxiety. I wasn't necessarily shy because once you get me opened up and I start talking, like I'm
take us.
I can gab.
Oh my gosh, we have to talk about the comedy show we went to, because like take us to a comedy show and it's you know what,
you guys, I think that
we are a blast and a fucking half.
And we've always known that with each other, but other people are realizing because we're being ourselves, and we're blossoming right in front of our eyes and everybody else's.
Yeah, we're a good time. These two men. First of all, there was a great comedy show.
Amazing.
I will link that too because they are all over the States. It's called Don't Tell Comedy, and they keep everything a secret, including the location.
Yes.
Obviously, it's local to you. It's not going to be far. But
until the day of 8 a.m. and they send you an email.
Yeah. You don't know the lineup until you're sat in your seat, and then it's happening as you're sitting there. So it was such a fun time. It was the first time I think they ever came to Temecula, and I think they were all very intrigued, as one is when they visit the town for the first time. It's just a very nuanced feeling. You don't really know what you're going to get when you come here. But I think all of them have had a really good time. We ordered a really good red. They had a solid red there. And poke nachos.
I missed an entire set because I was way more interested in the nachos than whatever that man was saying. Honestly, I can't remember a thing about his comedy set other than that he has kids.
That's it. That's what I remember. I was knee deep in avocado. I was getting into the poke nachos and some fries, which the fries were good, but the poke nachos. I will go back specifically for that dish.
Yes.
And then on top of the hill, there was a private wedding happening. And lo and behold, it was an Indian wedding.
This bitch is
fantasy. I fucking lost it. Okay?
She did.
I was like, no, they're not playing that. They're not playing. I'm like, do you hear this? I'm like, do you hear this music?
We reverted back to our early 20s quick because we were running up that hill to a party, to a wedding we were not invited to.
Right.
And running up a hill in the
universe
dark.
saved us, and they're like, not today, bitches. Y'all are done. You're done. Because the music stopped.
Yeah.
As soon as we got to the top of the hill. And they were all dressed, I mean, beautifully. Like glitter. I could see them glittering from the bottom of the hill. I'm like, what am I doing here? So we walked back down.
Set of a Bollywood movie.
Yes.
Type shit.
Huge party bus waiting to like pick them up. And that was just one of the days because, you know, they last. So the next day, I, of course, got to talking. What? to two of the people that were either guests or potentially in the party. And she's like, yeah, we have a 12-hour day tomorrow. And I'm like, see, that's my kind of party.
Yes.
I'm the bitch to be out for 12 hours and then be like, what are we doing after this?
Yeah, exactly.
On a certain day.
I also learned, well, not learned, if you, before somebody accuses you of not being funny, if you own not being funny, it feels way better. So I've always been the bitch to be like, I'm just not really that funny. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with being that person in public and just being like, yeah, I'm not really that funny. But I know that I'm situationally funny and I'm witty. And I saw a TikTok the other day about Taurus placements. And of course, I'm a Taurus rising. And they were talking about how Tauruses, kind of like Capricorns also get a bad rap. And people think that they're boring and not funny. But Capricorns can be some of the goofiest, silliest motherfuckers I know.
I'm a goofy motherfucker.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. So this TikTok was saying that Tauruses not only are they situationally funny, you only find them funny when you're in on the joke.
Oh.
If you're not in on the joke and you don't get it, or you're maybe the subject of the joke,
okay,
you're not going to think the Taurus is funny.
Okay.
Until you're like having the hee hee ha ha with them.
Yeah.
Because they're letting you in.
Right.
And then she was talking about how sometimes Tauruses will have a lead up to the bit, or like they treat their entire life as a bit. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. Because I'm just out here telling stories for my own enjoyment and my own little giggles.
It's true.
And if you happen to catch it and also laugh with me, great. But in the moment, I'm telling it for myself.
Right.
So at the end of the show, we went up to one of the girls because we had seen her at another comedy show before. I forget her name, but I'll find her and I'll put
they
her.
sent me the lineup in the email after, which I thought was really nice. I was like,
So
that's
that
a little cherry on top.
Right.
And they're like, here are all their socials, and you could send them a tip on Venmo.
Do you remember her first name, at least?
I'll look for it, but tell the story.
Okay. So at the end, we just waited for the girlies because it was 2 women headliners. Amazing. And they were both hilarious. And the one girl... like I said, we've seen her before. And so we went up to her before because she was talking about like, where am I in Temecula? Like, I feel like I'm like about to like drive into like a murder situation. I'm not really sure, blah, blah, blah. And so I went up to her and I made her laugh multiple times. Joke. And I kept going with the bit. Because I'm like, ooh, like I'm in this. And I was like, I'm telling the jokes for myself as they pop in my head, but she's also joking. And
it was a good banter. There were a couple people there where I'm like, I'm not sure you understood like the assignment. I'm like not sure that you knew you were coming to a comedy show because people just don't be laughing.
Yeah, and so we were just joking, and I was talking about how Temecula is a weird place, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes I don't know if I'm going to show up and be lynched or have a good time, but I'm just rolling with it.
It was a cackle,
and the way that she cackled, probably made my entire year, and I think I'm going to tell this story for the next few months. Just so people can know. A real comedian laughed and thought I was funny. And I literally had to turn to Danie afterwards. And I'm like, did that really just happen? And was she just giving me pity laughs?
And I'm like, no, because I honestly wasn't even paying attention if she was laughing that hard because I was peeing my pants. I'm like, this bitch just said she was going to get lynched in the T-Towns. It was funny as fuck. In context, it doesn't sound funny now. No. But in context, it was very funny. But yeah, that was a really good time.
It's another one of those things you have to be in on the joke.
Toward the end of the evening, there were these 2, let's just call a spade, weirdos who like decided to spark up a conversation. They were like lingering, yeah. And I couldn't really tell like what the vibe was.
I didn't know where he came from.
Literally came like from down the hill somewhere.
We were running up the hill to go to the wedding, and he all of a sudden just appeared and helped me over a wall. I was like...
Yeah.
Huh?
He was like, oh,
where did you come from?
Like, are you going to crash that wedding? And we were like, yeah, but obviously not. And so when we walked back down, he was like calling to his friend. And then the friend kind of joined up with us. And they were just like a very strange duo. So like the conversation started out like cheeky. And we were just taking the piss, honestly.
Yeah, nothing was happening with either of those men.
No.
For either of us.
No. We got into the religions of it all, of course. And then it got really weird because we were talking about astrology as we do, which the religious guy was like, I don't know. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I don't really subscribe to it. And blah, blah, blah. But he knew his friend's sign right away off the bat from the birthday.
You're a Virgo.
Like, okay. Literally. Okay. Or like, oh, but you don't care. And before we had figured that out, this is the guy that helped Christina up the hill. We were like, okay, well, what's your sign? And he's like, my sign is a swastika. And I'm like, let's go. What a weird fucking thing to say.
I was trying to not outwardly show my panic.
Yeah.
Because you know how they say, like, don't show your fear?
Yeah. They can smell your fear.
Yeah.
That's really what it was like.
But I literally was like, I really hope that Danie wants to leave right now because I really want to leave.
After that, I was like, oh, this is like actually not fun anymore.
This is actually not.
We need to go. And so it was
really
like,
came out of your mouth.
We're so tired. And she was work in the morning.
They
were trying to get us out to go out on the town. And then they rode off into the goddamn moonlight together.
On the back of a motorbike.
They were the same motorcycle. What is going on?
But no homo. Okay.
And speaking to meeting people and how difficult that is, we are here today to talk to you.
We are spaghetti brain, but we always get to what we're trying to talk about.
Absolutely. We are here to talk to you today about the show of the show at the moment on the Netflix called Nobody Wants This. And I feel like if you've not watched yet, that's okay.
Oh, I was gonna say then you're under a rock because we're talking about this like a month too late.
Honestly, you might be under a rock.
It's different sentiments.
like,
Danny's like,
as in-
that's okay. I'm like, no, what the fuck are you doing, bitch? Get up off your ass and work. Nobody wants to binge anymore.
But yeah, we wanted to give it a little bit of a go because I know it's something that people are talking about a lot.
Yeah.
And as far as dating, but dating while you are low key on a healing journey or trying to figure out if that's actually what's happening.
Right.
Or if you are stuck in this repetitive pattern of dating the same person over and over and over again who you know is not healthy for you.
Right. I know. I was just excited to see Adam Brody on a screen again.
He's so cute. He's very darling.
One of my first celebrity crushes. Well, I never asked permission because that's just not the kind of bitch I am. But the OC came out when I was pretty young. Like, I think that we were like 4th or 5th grade. Like, I had no business watching that, but I would sneak it. Wow. I would wait for Crystal to go to sleep, and I would watch the OC. And so he was my crush.
I can understand that, especially at that age.
Crush.
You're like, wow, that's a fine specimen of a man.
And I've always wanted to date a man like Seth Cohen, and I never have been able to find one.
I think now everyone's on the hunt for their Seth/Noah/everyone else he's ever played.
Dylan O'Brien in every single movie he's ever been in.
Yep. Puppy dog. It's not even golden retriever.
Golden retriever
puppy
moments.
dog. Puppy dog golden retriever.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I watched it 2 times around.
She did, which I'm impressed.
Because I watched it passively both times around. And and so I just wanted to make sure I had an actual grasp of what it is that I was consuming. So I will say I like Kristen Bell. Mm-hmm. She's not necessarily in my list of actresses where, if I see her, I have to watch it.
Right.
But I can appreciate a little Kristen Bell moment.
It was good to see her because I feel like she hasn't been in a series in a while. She's been in movies.
Right.
And she was in the, Bad Moms?
She was in Bad Moms. She's great in Bad
franchise.
Moms.
Yeah, she was in that, but I haven't seen her in something.
I think her most recent TV series was The Good Place.
Oh, yeah.
But that was still a while ago. I think I got to like maybe 2 or 3 episodes. My mom watched it sporadically, so she's kind of a sitcom girly.
She really is.
She likes a good network television show.
I appreciate that about her.
Yeah, she's like a Superstore girly. She loved Jane the Virgin when it was on like TV, cable television. Yeah. 2 times around, I made notes on the second time.
She did, which I appreciated. I basically binge watched it in 2 days and then was like, Danie, you need to watch this so we can talk about it on the podcast.
And I did. So first, if you don't know this, as a fun fact, which you know we love to share on this podcast, this show was loosely based off the storyline of writer Aaron Foster's real life, who actually does have a podcast in real life.
Yeah.
And is a child of a celebrity who we learned today has had many wives.
Yes.
And that's also a tidbit that I did not know. He's currently married to Catherine McPhee of the American Idols.
It's funny that it's been like 20 years and we still remember her from American Idol and not anything she's done since.
What else has it?
She was in
she's Broadway
show. Yes, and she was on a TV show.
Yeah. Catherine McPhee from Broadway. Excuse me.
Yeah, we'll just say it that way.
Respect on Catherine's name. And fun fact, I went to go see the Ellen DeGeneres show live in Burbank in 2007. So that's when she was popping off.
I didn't know that you've been to Ellen.
Once. Wow. And it was really hard to get tickets. Really hard.
That was the time.
It was. And so I'm glad we went. But they actually taped 2 shows or like part of another show. It was really interesting how they did it. The musical guest was Catherine McPhee.
Cute.
And we got her CD-ROM. We got her CD to play. Every single person in the audience got a CD. And I was like, cool. Now we have 2 Catherine McPhee.
For real.
And then the surprise musical guest, which was really cool, my mom shat her pants, was John Legend.
Ooh.
Because they filmed that. So Ellen changed and they filmed that for a separate show.
Oh, yeah.
They'll
do that sometime.
And my mom like really actually lost her mind. So that was fun.
I can't imagine that. Marge is not a fangirl.
Internally. Like she lost it internally. Oh. You know, she didn't like actually outwardly.
I was thinking that
but I knew that she was having a moment.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that's my fun Catherine McPhee story. But they do have a podcast together, Aaron Foster and her sister, Sarah Foster, I believe is her name. Mm-hmm. And it's called The World's First Podcast. We went on to see if it was still actively active.
And it very much is.
And it very much is.
And it very much is still a pretty popular podcast.
Yeah.
It was one of the first, because I think they started in 2017, 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was one of the first lifestyle, two girls on a couch, just having a gab type of podcast that really took off.
Okay.
It was in that era of everybody starting a podcast.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So the show starts off with the understanding that Kristen Bell's character Joanne is recently separated, right? From
Yes.
her long-term partner, who we never know who that is.
No.
And that Noah is in a relationship. And this part always gets me. And I'm glad they just kind of introduce it and get it over with in the first episode, where she finds the ring and puts it on herself.
Yeah.
And she's like, I found it in a locked something. And I also found the key to the locked something. And so I just put it on because I know that you're going to ask me. And the answer is yes. Wow, you just took away his entire moment. A proposal is not only one person's moment. I thought that was very interesting.
It is. And I think that we all have been in a relationship where the other person might think that it's more serious or that it's going to go somewhere, and we're like, I'm just not feeling it. Like, if this is what it is, then I think that I have the wrong idea of what love is, if this is what it feels like, because I don't think it's supposed to feel like this. I really just appreciated Noah as a character and how he dealt with hard situations overall. He was a very emotionally mature, evolved man, which is hard to find, especially in Los Angeles, I would imagine.
Right. Not me always wanting to know the backstory. Like, how did he get that way? Didn't he have a very interesting relationship with his mom, and him not being able to decide a lot of things for himself as a kid? And how come that didn't give him unresolved trauma? And why doesn't he treat people like shit if he feels like shit?
Right.
But I had a lot of questions about how he became so well-rounded. Did it have a lot to do with his faith? Did it have a lot to do with his desire to be a rabbi from a young age? And so he kind of blocked out the other shit.
Right.
Also was
Did
still
it have
able
to do
to be
with like him viewing his parents' marriage?
Could have.
And how his mom basically ran everything, but in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah. And authentically himself, not trying to be this perfect religious figure. It's why I think Joanne was very confused when she first met him, because she had this stereotypical idea of who it was supposed to be,
which was hilarious.
So yeah, there were really comedic moments, but the characters basically were able to check in with one another. And the second time around, I just started noticing a lot more less about the relationship between Noah and Joanne, and more about the relationship between Joanne and Morgan, the sisters, because I didn't catch a lot of things the first time around. And then the second time around, I'm like, is Morgan having a crisis right now? She was very rude and mean to Joanne,
which
for Joanne just being happy.
Right. Which I would love to get into, because while you don't need to be rude and nasty, I think that it is a sentiment that single women can come into a lot. And I have been guilty of it, of seeing, I mean, we both don't have sisters, so the only thing we can compare is seeing a lot of your friends, or maybe your cousins, close relatives, all moving on to that stage of life. And it's something that I still to this day deal with. I think I've let go of a lot of the needing to be on a timeline and the jealousy. I realize that not everything is perfect as it looks from the outside. Correct. So I try not to hold any jealousy or envy, but there have been times where I'm like, I feel like everyone in my life is leaving me behind, and I can't get a motherfucker to text me back. But all of my friends are meeting these guys who appear to be very great guys. And I feel left behind. And so I think that Morgan behaved the way that she was because she was deep down jealous and hurt that Joanne finally met somebody who treated her at her worth and who was genuinely a good, wholesome guy.
Yeah. That subplot, that little secondary story that they've got going on between her and the older brother is really interesting to me.
Yes.
That little secret kind of
and I want to see where that goes.
Relationship. I hope that they dive more into that in the second season, whenever that's going to air. I don't know, but we'll be back on this couch to talk about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot that they alluded to, but it's how do you be careful around that? Because he's absolutely married with a child.
Right.
Does he love his wife, or does he know that he's supposed to love his wife, and so he does?
Right.
We don't know. We just don't know.
Well, the wife gets on my nerves because she's a meddler and she's just not very nice.
Esther's not a nice person.
Yeah.
So I did pay a lot more attention to that. I paid attention to how she spoke to Joanne a lot of the times, and flip-flop too. Specifically when Joanne wanted to go on that retreat with Noah and they had this huge meeting lined up for the podcast, and Morgan kind of called her out on her shit, saying like, hey, had this been me and I wanted to go somewhere with a guy, you would absolutely lay my shit out and tell me that I couldn't do it and that I was ignoring the podcast and I didn't care about it, but you get to make up the rules whenever you want and you play by your own set of rules.
Right. And I think that we all have had that friend before who, as soon as they get into a relationship, that's the only thing that they care about. And I've always been, not always, I have been hurt in those situations because I'm just, even when I am in a relationship or talking to somebody, I am like, if I have plans with you or I'm around you, I'm not really on my phone. I'm not checked out. I'm still trying to have a good time with my friends. And a lot of times, maybe this is my downfall, I treat my friendships as more important than romantic relationships until it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, this is serious and this is going somewhere. But I think I've gotten hurt in the past because I'm like, why do I have these friends who, as soon as they're talking to someone's dusty ass son, they completely ignore me or they're treating me like I'm not important or ignoring our obligations or our plans. So I understand the sentiment. And yeah, I would be pissed too if I was Morgan. That's just not cool.
But I think that because I don't have a sister, I just don't understand like why they speak to each other that way. But I think that's very normal for a sister relationship.
Yeah. We don't have sisters, so we didn't grow up speaking to somebody that way. But we also don't really speak to our friends that way.
Right.
Like, sure, we'll joke with each other, call each other bitch or whatever like that, but I'm never like coming at you with something.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not being mean or rude to you ever. That's just not how we speak to each other. And that's not how I've observed either of us speak to our other friends. So it just is a very foreign concept.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Like, it must be a cultural difference. From what I've gathered on the podcast reviews, I believe that is the case.
I think that what made this show so big and blow up in the way that it did is, one, we haven't had just like a wholesome romance in a while. And two, I think that it really, for the first time in a while, gave women what they want to see on screen.
Yes.
Instead of toxic, 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 toxic. Right. These are all the reasons why men are scary and you should hate them.
Right.
Type of thing. It was finally like, refreshing of like, I just want to watch a flourishing relationship.
And it wasn't perfect, but their communication was healthy.
Exactly.
Even though they had moments where it was like, okay, we're not sure how to navigate this right now, but I'm not going to blame you or gaslight you or do any of the toxic things that, like you said, what we're used to seeing.
Right.
Like when they were, one of the first times I saw Noah get a little bit agitated was when they were leaving the sex shop, which was such a funny scene. And so he thought his whole entire trajectory of his career was ruined. And she tried to apologize and he was like, no, like, you know, I chose to go in there with you. And they were just trying to talk through it together. And I think that is just everything that we want from a relationship. We don't want the fighting.
Yeah, the accountability minus the fight and minus the blame, like having someone have to take the blame.
Right. It's just the situation is what the situation is, right? Noah didn't necessarily have to blame Joanne because at the end of the day, he did actually agree to go with her.
Right.
Even though she was like, no, we don't have to.
She did wanted to. She did insist.
Yes, she did. She's like, I'm not sure about that.
Right. Personal responsibility was taken at pretty much every road bump that they came across, which I appreciate. And it should not be shocking or foreign to me as a woman to see a man behave that way.
But is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's why everyone is so enamored. Because you're like, gosh, this can't only be a TV character, please.
Well, it very much is Adam Brody playing Adam Brody as Noah.
Yeah.
He's always like that.
Yeah. I know. Adam Brody plays Adam Brody.
Yeah. He's married to Leighton Meester, and they supposedly, from what other people say about their marriage, have a very healthy, loving, admirable marriage.
That's cute.
Yeah. Shout out to Leighton. Which is so cute because they both were on
I was going to say
teen dramas.
Right. So they get it.
They get it.
They're like, we've had so much trauma, we just want to be regular now.
Regular.
The episode where they're about to watch Pump Rules, which those are my girlies. They were going to have a nice time. And then all of a sudden it turned into like, oh no, I'm about to meet the parents. Where she was like, oh, that's really casual. No big deal. He left. He was like, this is not appropriate.
And changed his outfit.
Barely. But yeah.
Barely.
It was like running shorts,
Oh,
a
yeah,
hoodie,
yeah.
and a sport coat, which she hated.
I know.
I hate that you're calling it a sport coat. It is a sport coat. I really appreciated how matter of fact he was. I don't think that he really cared too much about her perception of him, because at the end of the day, I think he really understood how much she liked him.
Even though she didn't always want to admit it.
Right.
And I think the kicker is that he's just so secure in himself.
Right.
He just doesn't care.
It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. Prego. So that's the episode where she got really egged out. And something about his behavior, his mannerisms, how he was acting strangely because he was nervous.
Right.
Made her feel like, this is done. I'm over with. And so,
which is totally a me reaction.
And so the sisters talking about it outside, Morgan is fully convinced that that's the end of it. But then he immediately puts her mind at rest by saying, okay, I noticed that you're feeling a type of way. And so what is it? Which thing did I do today?
Right.
Which thing was it?
Yeah.
Right. I really like that he confronted her about that instead of just letting it pass or just letting her do what she thought she was going to do, which was end things.
Which was back the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that was the episode that made me really feel like, oh, we should talk about this on the podcast. Mm-hmm. But also all throughout, I just related to Joanne a lot. Mm-hmm. The insecurities, the neuroticism, and the hot and cold of like, does he, doesn't he, do I like him or do I not like him? Or like, ooh, this is over.
Yeah.
Like always like constantly being at this part of like, oh, it's over. This has to be the thing. I think it's common, especially in this day and age where you feel like there's so many people out there. There's so much access to people, which is what I feel like has ruined dating in the dating apps is like, oh, well, I can just swipe on all these other people if it doesn't work out with you. If I don't like one thing that you say or one thing in your profile or I don't like that artist. You know, it's like all these small little things that we feel like, oh, we have to like have an escape plan. Like, ugh, red flag, red flag. Red flags aren't always red flags.
What you think, what you think is a red flag may not be. You guys disagreeing on something that is okay to be disagreed on is not a red flag. Right. If they are like it's like I'm drawing a line in the sand because this violates my morals, then yeah, you're looking at a red flag because you're not going to change yourself, which we're going to talk about later, to appease another person and vice versa. They're not going to change them just to appease you. Like those are red flags where like, I can't see a future with this person because I do not align with them or their choices. We can have a conversation about it.
Right. There's certain things that can be overlooked.
Right.
I think that I watched the show and not only like, they have a podcast.
Right.
Where they are very open. Uh-huh. Which is what we're trying to do. Are we like talking about sex on the podcast? Not necessarily.
Not really.
But they're very open. They have big goals for the podcast. So it's like that already was something that I related to. She's the eldest daughter and she carries a lot on her shoulders.
Yeah.
The weight of the world while also balancing personal growth. I've been in all these train wreck relationships and I'm trying to do this differently. And even though I might want to snoop, or I'm obsessed with your ex or XYZ, whatever it was that she was doing in that episode to be a goddamn fool. It always came from a place of, in the past I would have done that. I would have checked your phone. But this time I'm really trying to be better and go about things differently because I do believe in where this is going and I want to start it the right way. It's a journey that I think that a lot of us who are still in the dating world are on. And it's a journey that I'm on. And it's hard because even in situations now, it's like I see something or this person behaves in a way that I'm like, that rubbed me the wrong way. Or like we had an argument or whatever. And it's like I could behave this way and just be a complete savage and cut you off and never talk to you again. Or I could do the mature thing and we have a conversation and I can see you as a human being and not somebody who needs to check all of my boxes.
Yeah. I've experienced that too. It's not been too often because I obviously have a lot going on at the moment, but I have carved out a little bit of time here recently to date and actually go on dates and not just like swipe. And I'm trying different things and I'm trying new things. And I noticed that about myself too. I'm like, okay, I want to make a really fast exit now because something that someone just said was just irritating.
Right.
And I want to run for the hills.
Right.
But I'm like, does that speak to me more than that other person? And I think, yes, I think that speaks to maybe me not necessarily being ready to jump into something, which doesn't necessarily have to be a relationship. But when you are dating, you are entertaining the other person with conversation, with a potential date or hangout, or hey, do you want to go here? Do you want to do this? And if at the end of the day you don't really have time to do that, then maybe it's like I'm finding myself having to take a step back. Sure, I want this human connection. I think that I'm craving human connection, and I am craving being able to be social and live out my early 30s and date in a way that I never have been able to date before. To have those experiences, but I do also have to be considerate for the other party and try to figure out what it is that they want out of this. A lot of people are dating for more long-term relationship,
especially if you have not been in a long-term relationship or haven't been able to start a family. I'm finding that when I'm talking to people on the apps, they're very upfront in the beginning of, I want kids, I want marriage, I want to build a life with somebody. And I'm really grateful for the transparency. But sometimes I'm like, whoa, I have to even figure out if I like you first.
Yeah.
Where's the balance?
Yeah.
Can we find a balance?
And I've even tried to find the balance of like, when do I introduce this information that I do have a child? Because at first I was very upfront about it. I flaunted it. It's not something I'm wanting to hide. But on the same token, it's a sacred part of me as well. And so does everyone have access to that part of me, like we talked about with Kelly? And so I tried it both ways. I'm like, okay, I'll be really upfront and I'll be really outward about it. And that went a certain way. And then it's not like I'm not getting people that are, it's not like I'm not getting any interest, right? I'm still getting people that are interested, even with it being outward. Now, when I held it closer to my chest, then I found myself in a situation where I had to reveal the information. But then I was like, okay, well, when do I reveal it? Because if I'm liking where things are going, then I feel like it's only fair to introduce that very early on. Like, if you would like to continue dating me, you need to know this information.
Yeah.
Right? However, let's say I wasn't feeling it. And the first date was like, no. Then I get to hold that sacred piece to my chest. And I feel like I didn't share it with someone who didn't deserve it.
Right.
So I'm still trying to navigate that.
I don't think that, and I've said this to you, there's no wrong or right way
And I'm
about
figuring that out.
Me personally, if I was on the other end of that as being the person without kids, because I am open to like potentially being a step parent, I honestly would really love that and enjoy that. I would like to know that the second we start talking.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
Everybody can be different. I think that if somebody waited until a couple dates in to tell me, I'd be like, why were you hiding it? I would feel deceived a little bit. And then it probably would change my feeling towards that person. Because I'm like, well, if they're going to hold that close to their chest, what else are they not going to tell me?
Yeah. But what I really liked about Joanne, many things, but what I related to the most was the goddamn basketball. Something about when she got involved in the matzo ballers. I was like, is this bitch me or what? Because it was like, I think Morgan was trying to call her out on like, oh, you don't like this shit. And now all of a sudden you like it. And Joanne was trying to figure out the line between a supportive partner and changing myself to fit someone else's.
And also fitting in with your community. Because she was like, these wives will be. What did she call them? Wags?
Wags. Yeah.
These wags will be my friend and I will make myself known. And even if they're uncomfortable, I'm not going to gatekeep myself.
Right.
So I think that was a funny episode because you saw both of like figuring out like, do I need to like that person's interest, but also I'm going to be around.
Right.
The same with the episode where she goes to the mother's house for the first time. Like, I'm going to be around. I'm going to be involved. You're not going to scare me off. You can either accept me and be kind to me or do whatever you need to do. If you want to be nasty, but I'm not going to entertain it.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the notes I made kind of in the middle where I was watching, I wrote down, Joanne must be liked.
Yeah.
She must be liked. And I get that. And I understand it. But at what point do you say like, okay, there are going to be people here that may not like me for no reason?
Right.
And do we have to be okay with that? Probably, or we might just end up in a toxic cycle of, am I good enough?
Right, the validation.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to take it into account her career choice. And when you are a content creator or have to show up online in any capacity, a lot of your success and what leads to other opportunities is how well liked you are.
Yes.
You have to kind of think of that in the back of your mind. I'm confident in myself, and I know that we're going to attract the people who are meant to listen to this podcast and be in our community. But if you're somebody who's just wanting all the likes and all the follows and I need to be this huge influencer, you're going to care about what every single person thinks about you, because to you, that matters.
Yes.
And I think that was Joanne.
Yeah.
She's so used to either having that validation, like in the first episode, that one girl was like, I love your podcast. And she's like, oh, of course you do. You have good taste.
Right.
She needs that external validation.
Yeah, I guess we can kind of speak to like how the Joanne that we met in the first episode, how she evolved over the first season and basically who we saw at the end. And I do want to talk a little bit about the last episode, because really we weren't sure what was going to happen. I think Joanne was contemplating her conversion, later on in the first season. And so we get to this point where she was at the bat mitzvah and you're thinking, okay, she's going to do it. She's fully invested. She's totally involved with the family now. And she loves Noah and is figuring out that she is in love with him. And so she wants to do what anyone would do for a partner when you are that in love, I think, is just do what you need to do to be with them.
Yeah.
Until the end, where she finally realizes that she's not ready, because I think she understood the weight. It wasn't just this decision that you make on a whim. It's really something you have to think about,
and
especially
it envelops your whole life.
Yeah, especially with her not coming from any type of religious background, so she didn't really have any context about how serious a religion can be, about the culture, the traditions, everything that they had basically involved her in up until that point.
Yeah,
she was kind of going along with it because she cared for and loved Noah.
Right, but I don't think she understood how
she never did any of it for herself.
Yeah, the symbolism and just how deep that runs,
right,
when you come from a religious background, a religious family, and then also choose to make that your profession.
Right. Yeah, it would be different if he was a member of the congregation and it ended there, but no, he was looking to be the guy.
Right.
So I liked how it ended. Now I would have loved for the cliffhanger to be more ending it with her saying her piece, because I think that they went a little bit more of the cliche route with him ending up on the bus. I would have liked for some time to go by, not me being a writer. So here's how you should have done it.
So let me rewrite your entire shit.
Rewrite the finale. So what I would have loved to happen was that when she thought the little boy was him, I thought that was actually going to be the end. And I think that would have been a really good way to end it. So that way that the audience had time to figure it out. But instead, we only had 1 minute in between that happening and then him ending up back on the bus. And I really didn't think that he had enough time to think about what she said.
Right.
That's it. Yeah. So did he just give up this thing that he's been wanting his whole life in a matter of 10 minutes?
Right.
To be with Joanne. And when Joanne clearly just said, I love you too much for me to allow you to make this choice.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's how season 1 should have ended.
Yeah. I think that because we both have been involved in a religion, we probably would go about things in a different way than she did. Like you said, she was kind of new to the entire world. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm pretty upfront about, I had this experience, so I'm not really open to converting to anyone's religion. And if that is what makes you feel centered and aligned and close to God or whatever higher power you choose, whatever noun you choose to use, that is great. And I'm not going to hold any judgment or expectations on you, but I expect that back in the same.
Yes.
I don't want to be pressured to go to church. I don't want to be pressured to baptize our kids if we end up having kids.
Right. Which is why a lot of the time you end up aligning with someone who basically shares your same religious background, beliefs, or any type of faith, right? Or involvement in faith.
Right.
because you don't want that back and forth. You don't want this idea in the back of your mind that one day they might get more involved. Right. And I'm still going to be where I'm at because my 10 toes were down.
I said what I said.
I said what I said.
Yeah.
And I meant that.
And I'm not saying that you can't evolve into something
Change your
else.
mind. Sure.
Or even be open-minded and say, I will appreciate this for you. That doesn't mean that I have that same feeling.
Right.
And belief stance.
Right.
But I can, like how we appreciate other cultures.
Yeah.
I can appreciate what makes you feel connected and spiritually fulfilled.
Yeah.
Without having to partake.
Right.
Or without necessarily having the same feeling.
Yeah. You can't turn it into a pressure cooker situation where all of a sudden I'm in this spot where I feel like I have to choose.
Right. It's one of the number one
person.
It's one of the number one reasons of divorce. Finances, infidelity, and religion.
Wow.
So it's like, it's not something to play about. It seems like such a small thing when you start dating someone because you're like, that doesn't really matter right now. It kind of does.
Yeah, especially if they're very involved and it dictates a lot of their choices. Then
yes. And it defines their identity and they don't know how to separate their personhood from the identity that their religion places on them.
Preach. That's facts. I think because we were, like you said, we were there.
Yeah.
We understand how that feels and what that looks like because at one point that was us.
Right. And we will.
I feel like we always allude to the religious trauma episode. And it's got to come soon.
It'll happen eventually.
Yeah, it will.
But I think that we will not allow an organization to tell us where our value is ever again. And that's the kicker.
Yeah.
Does your religion cause you to feel like you need to do this, this, and this to be a good person or to be holy enough or fill in the blank, worthy? That's where the line is for me personally. If you feel like you are not a good person because you don't go to church every Sunday, I can't do anything to convince you otherwise.
Right.
And I don't know, because I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help you see that. It's something you have to come to terms with on your own.
Yep.
And I will not allow you to make me feel that way. So that's the thing that is really, for me, the deal breaker on religion in relationships is like, how, does it affect how you feel about yourself? And does it cause you to project onto me?
I feel like you have to enter it with a lot of self-confidence to begin with.
Yeah.
And organized religion, for the most part, specifically speaking to our experience,
right?
Personally,
I don't know a lot.
They target a lot of vulnerable people.
Right. I don't know a lot about Judaism, so
me either.
I'm not going to speak to that, which is the religion, obviously, in the show because he's a rabbi. So I'm not going to say anything towards that. But
no, all we can speak to is that she chose what was right for her.
Yes.
In that moment.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because I think as women, we are put in a place where we feel like we have to change ourselves or mold ourselves to another person's
all the time.
Interests, the basketball, likes, hobbies, religion, all of the time, just to be palatable or so that we're not left. And I think that she lost the fear of being left.
Right. She was like, it's okay if I get left. I'm left with me.
And I like me.
Which
leads me to, there's been a lot of studies coming out and a lot of chatter on social about how by the year 2030, 45% of women 25 and up, which that's another statistic that sounds kind of confusing. It makes sense to me in my head. 45% of women above the age of 25 will be single. And there's been a lot of discourse on it because, of course, men are responding and being like, oh, it sucks to be them. Like, of course, you have nothing else to live for but your fucking cat. Like, but women are like, hell yeah.
Right.
So what?
Yeah. It's me and my cat up in this bitch.
Right. Shouldn't we
Better than me and you.
Right. Shouldn't we look at that as, that should be a greater problem than a me problem? If 45% of women are choosing like, I'm good.
Yeah.
There should be a greater conversation that leads to that, not just what the fuck's wrong with women.
Right. That's the answer. That's why by what year is it? 2030?
Yeah.
That's why by 2030, half of women over the age of 25, nearly half, are going to choose singlehood.
Choose. Not necessarily like they have been left or they want to be in a relationship. These are people who are choosing to not be in a relationship if they don't find the right one.
Literally, I tried it and I didn't like it.
So if I'm by myself the rest of my life, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down with that. I think we talk about that all the time. I think we started having that conversation probably
very quickly
a while ago. I think it was like even before I got into a long-term relationship. I was like, hey, by whatever certain age, like if either of us are still in this spot, it's like we're making a matriarch house.
Yeah.
It's the single bitches.
I'm so down for that. We, what is it called? Is it domestic partnership?
It would be.
Right. Just to get each other's insurance or whatever it may be.
Right.
Make the legal shit more
dual income.
Yeah.
On paper. Better benefits.
Easier to survive.
Right. You get a beneficiary. You know, if one of us were to pass.
We're stuck in this shit together for life anyway, so it's like we might as well.
Put it down on paper.
We've already acknowledged that.
Yeah. At this point, I'm really like, I'm out here trying to have fun with it. Yeah. And I'm really, like we talk about all the time, nothing is that serious. I'm just trying to have the experience.
Yeah.
And so I really don't care what comes of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most fun. As I've taken the fucking expectation out of everything.
Right.
I don't care what happens. If you don't text me back, cool.
Right.
I actually don't give a fuck because I have other things to worry about. And I love being in that. I love being in that place where I'm like, I am not worried about, I don't give a flying booty.
Right.
If you talk to me or not.
But when you switch up and you get in that mindset, they are so bothered.
Yep.
They're like, what do you mean you're not waiting around for my text? Or you're not upset that I took 2 days to text you back? Because I'm doing other shit.
Right.
I have a life that doesn't depend on you.
Right. And I did appreciate the fact that I did go on a date and this person was very transparent with me and said, I'm going to let you know right now, I'm not going to text you a lot. And I'm like, perfect.
Love that.
And I loved that he was upfront about it. I was like, good. He's like, I don't really like to get to know people over a text message situation.
Right.
It's like, I find that things are like, they get misconstrued a lot.
They do.
And it's hard to get to know someone like that because you have an online version of yourself and sometimes people have a different in-person version.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that way. I show up like this pretty much everywhere I go.
Right.
But I can understand where he's coming from. Yeah. And I appreciated the not bothering me for like days at a time. And it's not weird when we pick back up the text.
Right. Or if I don't respond.
Or if I don't respond.
The person that I'm talking to now only wants to text.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God. There's only so many times you can ask somebody, how was your day? How are you?
It gets very redundant.
What are you doing? What are you watching? What are you eating? Like
Yeah. It's so boring.
Either pick up the phone and FaceTime me for 10 minutes, which I honestly would enjoy way more. Because then we're getting that face-to-face and like we have that time slot of like, this is what we're going to talk about. And like, if we're busy, cool. Like you're going to go cook dinner. Okay, cool. We'll talk later. We'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk in a few days.
Yeah.
But, or like, let's plan a day to actually hang out. But just like the constant texting back and forth with no destination is like, ugh.
And no depth either. If it's always the same questions over and over again, I'm like, I swear to God, I had this conversation with you yesterday.
Literally, I'm like, somebody save me. I'm like, are you having a good time? Because I'm not. Like, are you enjoying the conversation? Which begs the question, do you want connection? Because to me, this is not connection.
It's giving surface.
It's
really, at the end of the day, about knowing yourself. You can be in the process of dating and still get to know yourself, but tread lightly. You don't have to show up perfect. You don't have to show up fully healed. It's just impossible.
No, I just saw a post about that today,
Why was I going to call him Seth? Noah wasn't. Noah wasn't that.
But he was just actively trying.
Yes, he just knew how to navigate the feelings. He knew how to navigate how she was reacting toward him and knew that it wasn't personal. And it had a lot to do with her. He said, I know you have a lot on your plate. I know you have to take care of a lot.
Literally talk dirty to me.
I'm on your side.
That is
like,
all.
Excuse me?
Literally, that is all as an eldest daughter I've ever wanted anyone to like tell me. I see that you're doing all the fucking shit.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And you're not too much.
Right. You're taking care of a lot. I think that conversation with her mom before he went to go talk to Joanne gave him a lot of insight because the mom was feeling a certain way without the girls ever really knowing that that's how she was feeling. It was more so about their dad being emotionally unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why Joanne was attracted to emotionally unavailable men, because she didn't necessarily have a problem with her dad's sexuality. She had a problem with her dad not being her dad for her. That's why she's like, why are you trying to be a real dad right now?
Yeah.
And it didn't even register. If I said that to my dad, that would hurt his feelings.
Oh, for sure.
And it didn't affect him.
He didn't give it a second thought.
No, which was sad.
Yeah.
I hope we get more of that dynamic.
I was going to say.
Second season.
Their
Give
whole
me more family shit.
Their whole family dynamic was really interesting. I'm like, is that just the caucasity?
I would imagine so. That's the only thing I could chalk it up to in this season.
Or is it just the fact of like having a I guess it's dysfunctional a little of like the dad is transparent later in life about his sexuality, and the mom obviously still wants to be with him.
Yeah. And
how that creates like a really weird dynamic.
Yes. And also very unfamiliar with his display of affection toward this new person in his life.
Yeah.
Who we only saw for one episode. But I think they were just trying to build a foundation for who the character is that is her dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're going to get a lot more of the subplots in the second season alongside Joanne and Noah's story and how that plays out. So,
and thank God for that.
Yeah. And I want to know, of course, as always, what you guys think and how you feel about the show. Did you relate to it? Was it not for you? And if not, let us know why. It took me a minute. I'll tell you. I told her like the first 2 or 3 episodes, I'm like, I'm not suspending belief. I just don't believe it. I just think it's real.
I know. I was like, oh, she's not into it.
I was watching it with a lens of cynicism because I was like, where is the Noah? Like, there's no Noah in real life. I just don't believe that the Noah is out there. But
my therapist tells me that that's the problem, though.
Right.
We don't attract men like Noah because we don't believe that they actually exist.
Right.
So we're going to keep attracting the people that treat us shitty because we're like, well.
So I had to shift. And that is why this bitch watched it 2 times straight through. I was like, let me just get over this hump real quick. I can do it.
Right.
And I did. And I'm glad I did. Because I did really want to talk about it. Because I was seeing the clips and I was seeing people have these conversations. You know, my TikTok at this point is probably, my For You page is very confusing because it's going to be a lot of One Direction Liam stuff. And still a lot of like therapists and a lot of tarot readings. A lot of tarot readings is what I get.
Wow, even still?
Mm-hmm.
Mine's mostly astrology, mental health, whatever white boy of the month that I'm currently fixating on.
It's a hobby.
Yeah. Or it's mostly Joe Jonas. Who am I kidding here? And now it's One Direction and this show. And I'm trying not to get Love is Blind spoiled. I think that Netflix finally read the room and gave us something, which in my opinion is that they gave us something that was more realistic, because sometimes I watch like romance movies or TV shows and I'm like, that would never fucking happen in a million years. But it is plausible that you would go to a friend's dinner party and meet somebody. And I think that bringing it back to modern dating I think that's the missing piece, because in our parents' time, they would meet people at work.
Yep.
My parents met at a dinner party.
Cute.
They met because my dad's sister had a dinner party and invited all of her friends. And one of her friends was my mom's brother. And my uncle said to my mom, you should come. You would love it. They were fun. Like, and she had just moved to the area. He was like, you need to make friends.
Yeah.
Met my dad.
So cute.
Yeah, so it's like that's things that are just not happening now because people our age have other shit to worry about.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to have a book club every week or to have a dinner party because I'm trying to fucking survive.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury that we no longer have.
Did we just figure out it's a luxury to meet people?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, as we say a lot. The point of this podcast is to bring back the connection because it's something that we both have been seeking for a while. And we hope that that kind of sparks you guys to do the same, which is why we're always asking you guys to comment on our shit and talk to us.
Literally talk
to me. We really do
Yeah.
want to connect, and we want to figure out how can we help each other as a community.
Right.
And how can we help each other heal or find their person or meet new friends, start their business, start a podcast, whatever it is. Yeah. We're here to support each other, and we really are saying that. We really are girls. So
girls.
Believe us when we say Our DMs and whatever else are always open to you. We would love to converse. And let's light up the comments this week. I want to kiki and I want to hear your guys' favorite parts of the show. And if you had any epiphanies of your own after watching.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be intricate. If you're like,
No.
I don't really feel like sharing anything vulnerable about myself, or I don't really care to share too much about the show in that way, like in the mental health aspect, just tell me what your favorite part was. What's the funniest part?
Yeah.
Did you find it funny? Yes or no? Was it not that funny? You know,
Right.
tell me. Either way, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt.
Right.
It's not my show. I was already going to rewrite it anyway. So,
are you on the Adam Brody train? Are you not?
Right.
Whose train are you on that I may need to be aware of? I'm trying to rework my Mount Rushmore.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed. As always, please follow us on the Instagram at empathsanonpod. And TikTok, we're chilling, but you can follow us there too.
Yeah.
And the YouTubes.
Of course, the YouTubes. And of course, please leave a 5-star rating and review if you enjoyed this episode or any of our past episodes. There's been a lot of them that have been straight bangers lately, and we're going to be taking a break in December, beginning of January for the holidays. So we'll give you guys a chance to catch up. But we would love to hear some of your feedback. And if you are so kind to leave a review, we would love to read your words.
Yeah, turn on the little notification bell or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Love ya.
Love ya more.
Bye.